everyone, welcome to today's live stream. I got an email from someone yesterday, and it says, like I had asked her, she had asked about showing goats, and I said, do you mean in 4-H? Because she said her daughter wanted to show. So she says, yes, 4-H for my daughter. What are the benefits of showing in ADGA sanctioned shows? Would that mainly be for selling them? And she also earlier in that email asked about the benefits of AGS and ADGA membership and if they were the same. So there's actually multiple answers to this question. And first of all, I want to say that when it comes to showing goats in 4-H versus ADGA or AGS, the biggest difference I can tell you is consistency. 4-H is largely a volunteer-run organization. Even though it is administered by the extension office in your county, the people they really count on to run the fairs are volunteers. And that usually means parents. So it's kind of like Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, all those things, you know? And the difference between groups is huge. It depends greatly on who your local leader is. So that's one thing in terms of 4-H. But then when it comes to the fair, the people who are organizing your local fair are also going to vary tremendously from one county to another. So before I tell you about my daughter's experience, I want to acknowledge that I have heard some fantastic stories about 4-H in many areas. There was one girl who bought goats from us, and she showed them for the first year. She showed them as kids, and then she showed them as dry yearlings. And then she loved her goats so much, she was afraid to breed them because she's afraid something would go wrong. And so she taught, but you can't show dairy goats in a dairy goat class beyond the first year if they're dry. So she talked to the 4-H people in her area, and they agreed to add a driving goats class to their local fair so that she could continue to do a goat project every year. That is really unheard of. I have not heard of a county where they were willing to create a whole part of the show just for one person who was doing something that nobody else was doing. In fact, I've even heard of kids asking for things like that and just not been laughed out of the office, but like, no, why are you asking us to create a separate thing just for you? We're not going to do that. So that was really incredibly awesome. And that's what I'm saying. Like, it really depends so much on who the people are in your area. So that is like the best example I've ever heard of. This girl taught her goats to drive. They pulled her in a cart, and I don't know who they found to judge this, but I mean, she was the only person showing, so there wasn't any real competition. But I mean, I thought it was very sweet, really fantastic that they were willing to do that for her. On the flip side, my daughter's experience in 4-H was really pretty awful. The person who was in charge, this was back in the early 2000s. Nigerian dwarfs were accepted into ADGA in 2005. We got started in 2002. And so the person in charge of the fair did not like Nigerians, and she did not make a secret of it. So it's not like I'm exposing a big secret here. She raised Saanens, which are like the biggest breed. And here we had these tiny little goats. And the people that she would get to judge were just other local breeders. They were not actual judges. And it's 4-H. So they're just being judged. Well, I mean, it would be nice if they were being judged against an ADGA scorecard. But like the reality is, like the last year my daughters actually showed in 4-H, the judge did not even know what Nigerian dwarfs were. And it's pretty clear he thought they were supposed to be like pygmies, which are completely different breed, because he was putting them at the end. And one of those goats was actually a Finnish champion in ADGA. And he put her behind this Sanando that was owned by the person who putting the show together, who had like one of the worst examples of, she actually had she had a super lopsided udder. She had like clearly had mastitis on one side before. Like nobody would have even shown that goat in a sanctioned show because she would have been dead last. And yet he put her ahead of our Nigerian doe that was already a Finnish champion. And I think it's just because he had no clue what she was supposed to look like. And 4-H, so there's just no consistency in 4-H. Anybody can be a judge. Like you could just pull somebody in off the street and they could be a judge at 4-H. So whereas with ADGA and AGS shows, there is an official scorecard. So, it says what every body part is supposed to look like, how many points it is. And judges have to go through extensive training and pass a certification before they can judge a show. So there is a great deal of consistency if you're showing in ADGA or AGS. And we learned a ton. If you want to learn a lot about goats and what your goats are supposed to look like, simply going to an AGS or ADGA sanctioned show, you will learn a lot. One of the great things about goat shows is that the judges talk about why they are placing goats where they're placing them. So, they tell you goat number, this goat won because she is better in all these areas than this goat. But goat number 2 is better. She's got a nicer rear udder than goat number 3. So you learn a lot about your goat. So you see like, oh, that goat placed in front of me because she's got a nicer top line, and this goat placed behind us because my goat has a better, nicer escutcheon or something, whatever it is. So you learn a lot from those shows. Whereas, with the 4-H shows, there's just really no telling. And so if you're in a place where it's really great and you're going to have, really well qualified people doing it, then it could be a really positive experience. But if you're not in a place like that, then it could be a really negative experience for your child. And then the other thing is that saying that a goat won at a 4-H show really says nothing, because it could have been the only goat there, like the girl who was showing her goats in the driving class. They don't know how many people are going to sign up. There's no such thing as a sanctioned show. The shows with AGS and ADGA are sanctioned. And so if you have at least 10 goats that are in the show, in your breed. So if you're showing Nigerians or Sanans or Alpines or whatever, if there's at least 10 Nigerian does, then the show is going to be sanctioned, which means that if your doe wins grand champion, that is one leg towards her becoming a Finnish champion. And if a goat wins 3 times grand champion under at least 2 different judges, then that goat can be a Finnish champion. And that does increase the price of the kids that you sell. So, if you have a goat that's a Finnish champion, you can sell her kids for more money than if you have a goat that has never stepped inside of a show ring. Unless that other goat has something else going for her, like she's on milk test and she's, it's a Nigerian and she's milking 800 or 900 pounds a year. So basically, it helps to give buyers an idea of the quality of the goats. So if you have a goat that is ranking number 1 all the time, because sometimes if you're in a really super competitive area, it can be, with huge shows, like let's say you have 40 or 50 goats in a show, like the first 5 goats are probably all going to be magnificent. Like they could probably all wind up finishing a championship if they were at smaller shows. So, if you're in a super competitive area and you say, this goat has won first place in shows with lots of goats before, then that is going to count. That'll count for something too. Saying that your goat won first place at 4-H is just not, it doesn't tell your buyer anything, because again, there's no consistency at the shows. So they don't know how that, what that judge was like that placed the goat. And so you are not getting any benefit whatsoever for saying that your goats have done well in a 4-H show. And the other thing is there's only one 4-H show every year, unless you take them to state. And so if you only show in that one show, then that's, one time that you can say like, oh, this goat got first place or second place. And many times if you mention, if all you mention on your website are 4-H wins, that's the only thing you mention in your ad, that's going to turn off buyers who are looking for better quality goats, because they know like, oh, well, it was a 4-H show, so that really doesn't mean anything. So the only people that you would attract are people that are brand new and don't know the difference between a 4-H show and a show that is in ADGA or AGS. The other thing she was asking about was the difference between registering with those two. What you really have to do, and this is not a good time of year to do it, is that you have to know how many shows are available in your area. The other thing is how far are you willing to travel? So there are a lot more ADGA shows than there are AGS shows, but to really know what's in your area, you would need to check the website to see what shows are coming up. And most people they're not going to be, this is like the end. Show season is in the rearview mirror now. So people are not going to be, that's not going to be on the website for several months still. So you'd have to wait until spring to see. But there is a lot more opportunity to show goats with ADGA than with AGS in most parts of the country. If you are buying goats from somebody in your area who has them registered with only one or the other, you could at this time of year, you could also ask them, like how many shows are available with AGS or ADGA. In terms of the other performance programs, they both have them. The American Goat Society and ADGA both have milk testing, and ADGA has what they call linear appraisal. AGS has what they call classification. And linear appraisal, we did classification with AGS when our goats were registered with them, because you can pay a classifier to come to your farm. And you can set the date. There were only, I think at that time, it's probably been 10 years since we did that. There were only 3 or 4 classifiers in the US, and we're in Illinois. Luckily, one of them was in Indiana. So I contacted him and basically set it up with him that he came to our farm and classified our goats for us. And we paid him, and that's how we got our goats classified with AGS. If you do linear appraisal, ADGA puts out a list every year of which states the appraiser will be going through and when. So you basically, so you would sign up, and that's closer to the first of the year. You would sign up for linear appraisal, and then you would be put on the schedule, and then they would let you know when the appraiser is going to be in your area and will be appraising your goats. So there's a few other small differences between those two. The scorecard is a little bit different between the two, but in general, a goat that scores excellent with one is not going to score good with the other, and vice versa, because they are, like I said, there's only, a few points difference here and there, but for the most part, if a goat scores excellent with one, they're going to score excellent or really close to that with the other one, or whatever score they have, they're going to be similar. And So anyway, I hope that has been helpful in explaining some of the differences between the registries as well as in the various shows. If you've got any additional questions, please feel free to post in the comment section below. And if you've got something to say about like if one of the registries is bigger in your part of the country than the other, that would be great to mention also in the comment section. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.